In this video, we're building a complete 3D weapon system in GDevelop. I'll show you how to create logic to pick up guns from the world, manage ammo and reloading, and implement a physics-based drop system so you can swap weapons on the fly.
Before we get to the fun stuff, we need to set up our data. Start by adding two variables to your player object. A boolean called armed, set to false, and a text variable called inventory state, set to empty. You'll also need to add a scene variable called weapon count. Now for the weapons. Make sure all your guns are in a single object group. For the variables, add a text variable called state and set it to ground. This tells the game the item hasn't been picked up yet. You also need a boolean called picked and a text variable for the name. To attach the weapon to the player, we will use two structure variables, attach bone for the hand and holster for the hip or back. Inside these, define your target bone name and offsets. You can copy the structure on screen, but you will need to tweak the X, Y, and Z values to fit your specific model. Finally, to make this work, add the bone socket 3D behavior to your player object. This acts as the glue. If you haven't used this extension before, I've linked my guide on it in the description.
To kick things off, we need to know exactly what the bones are named on our 3D model, so we can attach weapons to them. Create a new event group called Show Bone Names. Add a condition for at the beginning of the scene. Then look for the debug actions under the bone socket 3D behavior on your player visual object. Choose Print Bone Names to Console. Now, when you preview the game and press F12, you'll see a list of every bone you can attach items to. Next, let's handle the logic for when the player isn't holding anything. Create a group called isUnarmed. We want to check two things here. First, grab the text variable of the player called inventory state and check if it is equal to empty. Second, we want to make sure the boolean variable armed is set to false. This basically ensures that the game knows we are completely empty-handed before we try to run any shooting or aiming logic. Now for the heavy lifting. Create a group called Weapon Logic. Because we might have multiple guns in the scene, we need to process them individually. So add a For Each Object event and select your Weapons group. Inside this loop, we are going to check the state of the gun. Add a condition checking the text variable state of the Weapons group. Let's start by checking if the state is set to hand. If the state is hand, we need to snap that object to the player. Go to your player visual object, find the bone socket 3D behavior, and choose Attach Object to Bone. The Attach to Hold is our weapons group. The bone name comes from our variables. Click the expression builder, the sigma symbol. Go to Object Variables, find your weapons group, and select the structure variable we made earlier called Attach Bone. We need to do the same for the offsets and rotation. For the X offset, go back into your variables, find weapons, open the structure, and choose offset.x. Repeat this process for Y, Z, and the rotations. By using these variables instead of hard typing numbers, every gun can have its own unique grip position without us writing new code for every single weapon. Once the attachment is set up, we need to handle physics. Add an action for the weapons group, go to Physics 3D, and set behavior activated to no. If we don't do this, the physics engine will fight the bone attachment, and the gun will jitter or fall. Finally, let's update our flags. Set the boolean picked to true, set the player's boolean armed to true, and I also like to update the player's visual text variable to the name of the weapon so we can trigger animations later. Now we need logic for when the weapon is equipped but holstered. To save time, copy the entire hand event we just made and paste it below. Change the condition from checking if state is hand to check if state is holster. Now we just need to swap out the variables. Open up the attachment action. Instead of attach bone, delete that and replace it with holster.bone we created. Do the same for the offsets. Replace offset.x with holster.x and go down the list replacing the Y, Z, and rotations with their holster structure counterparts. This will snap the gun to the player's back or hip whenever we holster it. For the holster variables, make sure picked stays true, but change the armed boolean to false. This tells the game, I have a gun, but it's on my back, so don't let me shoot it. Finally, we need to handle dropping the weapon. Create one last event checking if the weapon state is ground. If it is, we need to break the connection. Go to the Player Visual, Bone Socket 3D, and choose Detach Object. Select the Weapons group. Then, we need to turn gravity back on. Copy the Physics 3D action from earlier, paste it here, and change Activate to Yes. Lastly, set the picked boolean to false. Now, when you drop a gun, it effectively becomes a world object again.
Now let's build the pickup logic. Create a new group and start with the input. We'll use the E key pressed condition. Next, we need to check if a weapon is actually close enough to grab. I like to use an OR block here to give the player options. Inside the OR block, add two conditions. First, check if the visual object is in collision with the weapons group. Second, check the distance between the visual object and the weapon is below, say, 100 pixels. This ensures that whether you are standing right on top of the gun or just looking at it from a step away, the pickup will register. We need to filter which specific gun we are talking about. First, make sure we only pick up guns that are currently on the floor. Add a condition checking if the weapon's text variable state is equal to ground. Next, and this is crucial for 3D games, add the condition pick the specific object and choose Weapons. Select Nearest to Position. Enter the player visual's X and Y positions. This ensures that if there are 3 guns in a pile, the game only picks up the one closest to the player, preventing weird glitches. Now for the actions. When we press E, we need to update the weapon's properties. First, we need to turn off the physics so it stops falling. Find Physics 3D for the weapons group, choose Behavior Activated, and set it to No. Next, update our Boolean flag. Change the Boolean variable picked of the weapon to true. We also need to tell the system where the gun is going. For now, let's change the text variable state of the weapon. You might be tempted to set this to hand immediately, but we need to know if our hands are full first. So let's pause on the direct assignment and build an inventory manager to handle that decision for us. Create a new event group called Inventory Manager. This system will count how many guns we have and decide if the new gun gets equipped or holstered. Add a sub-event. We need to initialize our counter. Check if the player's text variable inventory state is empty. If it is, set the scene variable, or object variable depending on your setup, weapon count to 0. This acts as a reset, ensuring we start from 0 when we have nothing. Now let's handle picking up the first gun. Add a new event, check if weapon count is equal to 0. If we pick up a gun and we have 0 weapons, this new gun should go straight to our hands. So add an action to change the weapon's text variable state to hand. Then we need to update our inventory status. Change the player's inventory state text variable to 1 weapon. Finally, increment the weapon count by adding 1. This moves us to the next logic state. Now, what if we already have a gun? Copy that event and paste it below. Change the condition to if weapon count is equal to 1. In this case, our hands are full, so the new weapon needs to go to the holster. Change the weapon state action to holster. Update the player's inventory state text variable to 2 weapon. And don't forget to add 1 to the weapon count again. This system now intelligently sorts your loot. The first gun you grab is ready to shoot, and the second one automatically straps to your back.
Add a new event at the bottom of the list and rename the group to Drop Weapon to keep things organized. Click Add Condition. In the search bar, type Key Press and select Key Pressed. Set the key to G and click OK to define the input trigger. Click Add Action. Search for Boolean and select Boolean value of an object variable. Choose the object Weapons, select the variable Picked, and set it to false. This tells the game the player is no longer holding the item. Now create a sub-event to handle specific inventory logic. Add a condition checking the text of an object variable. Select the battle object, variable inventory state, and check if it equals 2 weapons. Add another condition to this block. Pick all instances of the weapons object. This ensures we are checking every weapon in the scene. Add a third condition here. Check the text of an object variable for weapons. Select the variable state and check if it equals hand. This targets the weapon currently being held. Now for the actions. Change the text of an object variable for weapons. Set the state variable to ground. Add a second action, search for activate, and select activate behavior. Choose the weapons object and the physics 3D behavior, setting it to yes so the weapon falls physically. To handle the secondary weapon, copy the conditions we just created. Paste them into a new event block below. Open the state condition and change the value from hand to holster. Finally, copy the two actions from the previous block, setting the state to ground and activating physics, and paste them into this new holster event block to complete the logic. Create a new group. Rename the grouped events header to swap logic to organize the new mechanics. Add a new event inside this group. Search for key pressed, set it to Q, and click OK. Change the inventory state variable to 2 weapons and add a trigger once condition. Now hover over the Add button in the bottom right and select Add a sub-event, the second option. This creates an indented event nested under the Q key press. Add 2 conditions. Pick all instances of weapons and check if the state variable of weapons is equal to hand. Add an action and change the state variable of weapon to temp. Duplicate this event twice. In the second event, change the condition to check if the state variable is equal to holster. Add an action to change the state variable to hand. In the third event, we check if the state variable is equal to temp and add an action to set state variable to holster.
There you have it. Now your player can pick up, drop, and swap weapons. In the next tutorial, we will use my Fire Bullet 3D behavior to fire weapons and configure weapon properties.